Take this job and shove it.
This is Mike Baumgartner, your work-life survival sage. You are listening to Jobcast Radio. If you've got a problem with your job, you need help, you got a boss that's a jerk, you're trying to make ends meet, but you just don't know what to do, you're having trouble with your finances because the job's not paying you enough, the company's discriminated against you, something bad has happened or something good is happening, or maybe you don't have a job. Maybe you need a little help with your resume. Maybe you need help with an interview problem. Maybe somebody asked you a question that you found really, really offensive. That's what you do, is pick up the phone and give me a call, 304-867-4142. Again, 304-867-4142. Or shoot me an email, mike@jobcastradio.com. You can do that anytime during the day, during the night, 24/7. 304-867-4142. I will return your call and we will get you taken care of, because I have been in the employment industry. I have been in human resources. I have been in companies. I have 20 years of fixing these kinds of problems and giving advice to people who've had problems, because let's face it, the company you work for, they have lawyers to give them lots of advice on how to deal with you. You need somebody to help you out knowing how to deal with them. If you got other questions, you can find lots of articles on help, on how to deal with again, interview, resumes, all that kind of stuff at my website, jobcastradio.com. And again, give me a shout if you need some help. I wanted to talk a little bit more about, look, I get it. You know, we talk about resumes a lot. There are so many things that you think about when you're putting together a resume. And if you go to YouTube and you type in Jobcast Radio, you're going to find many of my video posts, and many of the video posts on my website deal with resumes. Why? Because a resume, unfortunately, will make or break your chance of getting a job. And I wanted to talk specifically about something. I had an interesting experience this week, in that I had the opportunity to send a couple of resumes to some people that I knew because they were looking for a particular job. And this is really hard to talk about, because I know that these people, well-intentioned, but my guess is they paid somebody to write the resume, or they bought a book about resume writing, and they wrote this resume, because I know them well enough to know that what was written in this resume was not them. And I always encourage you, when you write your resume, just be yourself. Don't try to make yourself look like you are Superman. Do not make claims of things that you did not do. Make sure you know what you're talking about. But the words that were in one of these resumes, as I read it, again, they look like they were, not that they were Superman, because I know how good an employee they were. I know how good they are when they're in the job. But the words that they used in the resume, and they must have read some book somewhere that said use action words, use really, motivating words that have movement. When you say that you did something, you say you lowered, a metric. I lowered the budget by an astounding 5%. No, the person who looked at these resumes, who is quite honestly one of the most brilliant people I know, didn't want to talk to this person, because the words that they used didn't match. It just sounded almost comical that this person would say, well, I lowered the budget by an astounding 5%. Astounding? Where did that happen? And honestly, it's my fault. I should have looked at the resume better, and I should have talked to this person and said, what are you trying to do? And I made the assumption that their resume was going to be fine, but they got slammed for it. And here's the deep, harsh reality about your resume. Your resume, if it does not make a mature, intelligent impression within 90 seconds, or within a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes for some people, you're gone. You're not going to get considered for the job. That's the harsh reality. In any company, a resume will have the lifespan in front of a recruiter of about, again, 90 seconds. As they look at your resume, they're going to look at the companies you worked, what titles you had, a couple of the things that you accomplished, and if it looks like you're full of it, you end up thrown away. If you don't exactly match the job, you're thrown away. If I have to dig into the resume to get an understanding of who you are, your resume is going to get thrown away. So do not, look, I don't want you to go hiring a resume writer unless you really, number one, can afford it, because it's extremely expensive. Or send me your resume and we can talk about it. And we don't even have to talk about it on the air. But you gotta be careful that your resume conveys who you are. If you're an aggressive individual and if you're somebody who drives performance and stuff like that, that's fine. Put that in your resume. Make sure that you back it up and that you're not sounding like this resume it makes you Superman. And I've talked about making yourself look like Superman in past videos and in past radio shows. You really need to focus upon this. Another one of the resumes that I had, it was just poorly constructed. You couldn't follow from one job to the next where this person had been or where this person was going. And unfortunately, there was a very large gap in the resume that had said they had not worked, or at least according to the resume, since around 2007. Now, it is 2011 right now. If you're going to assume that I am just going to ask you, what have you been doing since your last job back in 2007, you're wrong. I'm just going to throw it away. You haven't worked since 2007. That tells me you're outdated. You haven't given me an explanation of what you've been doing. Put it in your resume. If you haven't been working, what have you done for the last 5 years? Think that through. I mean, we're almost on 2012. You've been out look, when I look at a resume and I see that you left in 2007, I immediately assume you left in January. So what have you been doing? 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011? I need to know. Because if I don't see it on your resume, I'm not going to waste time calling you up and asking you. Even if you've got some great background, there's a reason you haven't had a job. Because those with jobs assume that everybody else wants a job. Now, if you took 5 years off to go work for the Peace Corps, if you just couldn't find a job for 5 years, that's fine. What did you do? Make sure you note it on your resume. It doesn't have to be at the top. It could be down at the end. Just an explanation of where it is. Time gaps are critical. If I look at your resume and I see that you've been out of work for 6 months or 8 months, I understand with the economy, but you need to be ready to answer those questions. But if I've seen you've been out for 2 or 3 years, I really need to know why. Because, look, people will assume all kinds of things. And many times I've done that, and I've said, where have you been for the last 2, 3 years? And it'll be, I was incarcerated, I was in prison. Oh, well, yeah, you may not want to write that specifically down on the resume, but you do need to reference it, even if it's, job gap, discuss, unavailable for employment at the time, whatever it is, and we can get into more detail. Some people may assume that it was illness, whatever. You need to make sure that you're doing this and that you're putting, again, your personality of who you are into the resume. If you can't read the resume out loud in front of your friends, if you can't read your resume out loud in front of your mother or your past boss, if you're too embarrassed to do that because you think it smells when you do, or it's just way too much bragging, it probably is. So don't try to do that. Now, look, and I know exactly what a lot of you who have talked to me are saying. Look, Michael, you told me that this resume is a marketing piece. It's to make me look good. It's to make me look special. That's exactly right. This is a marketing piece. But you've got to be able to stand behind the product. Nothing is more embarrassing than a resume that tells me you are incredibly great and you are this and you are that and you are that, and you get in the interview and you're none of those things. That's false advertising, and you just won't go anywhere. False advertising on a resume will get you slammed. On the other hand, you can't underplay yourself as well, because if you underplay yourself, the person who's playing themselves just right is going to get the job. I know it makes your head spin trying to put it together. I get that. I understand that. But you have to create the resume with the reader in mind. If you don't know who the reader is, then, again, read your resume in front of your friends, in front of your family, in front of your mother. If she starts laughing at you or starts telling you it's not true, then you need to rethink it because you absolutely positive. Now, don't get me wrong. I am sure everybody out there knows somebody who absolutely, totally filled their resume full of smelly crap and got the job. Yes, those are salespeople, and they sold themselves, and they sold a bill of goods, and they were able sometimes to keep themselves afloat. But I also know a dear friend of mine who applied for a controller job who called me on the first day of his job and said, "What's a trial balance?" Now, I'm sure only the financial people are going, "Oh my God." But that's what it was. Don't sell yourself into it because, let's face it, the competition's tough. Make sure that you're doing it right, you're staying to who you are, and you're being truthful. Got more questions? Give me a shout. Jobcast Radio.
Take this job and shut it.